In the long history of tennis, few names evoke as much admiration, controversy, and sheer force of will as Novak Djokovic. He is a man who has redefined longevity, professionalism, and personal conviction. But in May 2023 at the French Open, Djokovic did something that stirred not just the tennis world, but the world beyond the court. He wrote 7 words that reignited a decades-old conflict. 7 words that blurred the lines between sport and politics. Kosovo is the heart of Serbia. Stop the violence. What followed was a media firestorm, a geopolitical debate, and yet another chapter in the long-running saga of Novak Djokovic's complicated relationship with the world. To understand why those words mattered so much, we must go back, before Paris, before the match, before the marker hit the lens, to the unresolved tensions that have shaped not only Djokovic's worldview, but his very identity. Kosovo, a region in the Balkans with a majority Albanian population, declared independence from Serbia in 2008. Most of the Western world recognized this independence, and Serbia did not. Neither did Djokovic, who was born in Belgrade in 1987 during a time when Yugoslavia was still a united nation. To Novak, Kosovo isn't a headline, it's heritage. It's where the Serbian Orthodox Church has deep historical roots. It's where battles were fought, memories were buried, and national pride runs deep. When violence erupted in northern Kosovo in May 2023, following disputes over local elections and ethnic tensions, Serbs in the area clashed with NATO peacekeepers. The situation escalated quickly, leaving dozens injured. Images of chaos, burning vehicles, and heavily armed soldiers circulate around the world, but in Serbia, they didn't just see unrest. They saw pain, they saw injustice, they saw Kosovo, and Novak Djokovic, arguably the most famous Serbian alive, saw it too. So, after beating Alexander Kovacevic in the first round of Roland-Garros, he walked to the broadcast camera, picked up the marker, and wrote those now infamous words. The reaction was immediate. French officials expressed concern. Kosovo's Olympic Committee demanded punishment. The International Tennis Federation distanced itself from the statement, and journalists across the globe debated whether this was political provocation or personal expression. Djokovic didn't flinch. In the post-match press conference, he doubled down. He said he was not a politician, but a public figure with responsibility. He said he felt the duty to speak out as a son, a father, and a Serbian. And then he said something that echoed louder than any statement he'd ever made. Kosovo is our heartland. It's our stronghold. We are part of that land. To some, it was patriotism. To others, nationalism. And to many, it was a dangerous fusion of sports and geopolitics. But what made it even more complex was that Djokovic wasn't done. He kept speaking about Kosovo throughout the tournament, calling the situation a precedent that was being ignored by the West. He challenged the media narrative, questioned NATO's presence, and painted the conflict through the lens of Serbian victimhood. For years, Djokovic had been an outsider in tennis, a man who challenged Federer and Nadal not just on court, but in culture, language, and ideology. He was the Serbian who didn't always fit in, the unvaccinated champion during COVID, the man who skipped Wimbledon's champagne events, the man who fasted for Orthodox holidays, and now the man who brought the Balkans to the baseline. By the time the tournament ended and Djokovic lifted yet another Roland-Garros trophy, there was a different kind of weight on his shoulders. He had won, yes, but he had also triggered a broader conversation about what athletes should say and what they should leave unsaid. Fast forward to 2025. 2 years later, Djokovic returns to Roland-Garros, now 38 years old. The game has changed. Jannik Sinner has become the new world number 1. Carlos Alcaraz is leading the charge of the next generation. Rafael Nadal is playing what may be his final French Open, and the geopolitical situation in the Balkans, still tense, still unresolved. As Djokovic steps onto the court in Paris, his 2023 message has not been forgotten. If anything, it has been reignited because just days before this year's tournament, the Kosovo-Serbia border flared up again. Reports of military posturing, cyber attacks, and renewed diplomatic hostility dominate the news cycle, and once again, all eyes turn to Djokovic. Will he say something? Will he write another message? Journalists press him in pre-match interviews. His team tries to deflect. But Novak, he remains cryptic. He says only, "My beliefs haven't changed, but I've learned when to speak and when to play." That silence doesn't stop the speculation. Social media is ablaze. Fans from Serbia flood Paris with flags and chants. Albanian activists protest outside the stadium. And the French Tennis Federation issues a quiet but clear statement. Political messages are not permitted on court. The integrity of sport must be preserved. In his first round match, Djokovic wins in 4 sets. No message this time, no marker, just a nod to the crowd. But the press doesn't let go. Questions fly in the post-match conference. Do you regret what you wrote in 2023? Do you still believe Kosovo is Serbia? Should athletes be allowed to speak on geopolitical issues? Novak answers carefully. "I don't regret what I believe," he says, "and I won't apologize for loving my country. But I also understand that words carry consequences, especially when the world is watching. That balance between identity and responsibility, between patriotism and provocation, has become Djokovic's burden to bear. Meanwhile, the political world is watching too. In Serbia, President Aleksandar Vučić praises Djokovic again as a national hero. In Kosovo, Prime Minister Albin Kurti criticizes the tennis star for reviving dangerous narratives. The European Union, struggling to mediate between the two Balkan states, sees Djokovic's name appear in political commentary. A tennis player, now inadvertently part of diplomacy. By week 2 of Roland-Garros 2025, the media's attention shifts to the court. Djokovic makes it to the quarterfinals, defeating younger rivals with flashes of brilliance. Commentators marvel at his stamina, his mental toughness, his refusal to age, but the shadow of 2023 still follows him. That year, his message had divided tennis. Some players, like Rublev and Medvedev, had kept silent. Others, like Stefanos Tsitsipas, had called for respecting the rules of the sport. Naomi Osaka had spoken vaguely about the right to self-expression, while Iga Swiatek had emphasized the need for empathy in global conflicts. In 2025, the locker room feels different. The new generation is more image-conscious. Fewer players want to get political. But behind closed doors, many still debate the Djokovic moment. Was he wrong to speak up, or did he say what others feared to? As Djokovic steps onto the court for his semifinal against Carlos Alcaraz, there's electricity in the air. Not just for the tennis, but for the idea that this might be his final run at Roland-Garros, the place where he made history and controversy. He loses in a grueling 5-set battle. As he packs his bag and waves to the crowd, he lingers. For a moment, he looks at the camera lens. The same kind of lens he used 2 years ago. He doesn't write anything. But the silence says more. After the match, reporters ask if this was his last French Open. He doesn't say yes, but he doesn't say no. Instead, he talks about legacy, about the importance of standing for something, about how in tennis you leave your mark with more than just wins. You leave it with conviction. Outside the stadium, a Serbian fan holds up a homemade banner. It reads, "Thank you, Novak, for the titles and the truth." In Kosovo, the image circulates online. It reignites old debates. Some say Djokovic has been emboldened again. Others say he's matured, realizing the magnitude of his influence. But one thing is clear. The story didn't end in 2023. It didn't end in 2025. It may never truly end. Because Novak Djokovic didn't just hit balls over a net. He hit nerves. He hit history. And for better or worse, he reminded the world that athletes aren't just ambassadors of sport. They're reflections of the nations they come from. In a world hungry for silence, Djokovic spoke, In a sport obsessed with neutrality, he chose sides, and in doing so, he became not just a legend, but a lightning rod. The man who served aces and served notice not just to opponents, but to the world.